Hello, welcome to TBLV, TESL Basics for Language Volunteers. Newcomers to Canada in ESL and LINK programs come from all walks of life and have varying degrees of education and English language ability. Some have never finished high school in their home countries, let alone uttered a word of English. Others have university degrees and can communicate quite proficiently in English. That said, whatever their story and education level, most newcomers to Canada are in survival mode. They want to get settled in their new Canadian lives. And that means being able to do day-to-day things, like finding a house or apartment, registering children in school, and making doctor's appointments. It also means getting a job to support the family. Some learners will be looking for a survival job, while others hope to get equivalents for education obtained back home and find employment in their chosen field. In this program, we have a great lineup of LINK and ESL instructors who share with us how they teach newcomers English for daily life and for employment, and how volunteers can help support them inside the classroom and in conversation circles. Let's get things started with introductions.
My name is Stephanie Paget. I'm an ESL teacher here at 440 Albert Street in Ottawa. I'm currently teaching literacy and basic skills.
My name's Shelley Lewis, and I teach a class called Pathways to Education and Employment. It's for level CLB4. This class focuses mostly on preparing people for employment or to continue their education in the adult high school. I also have some students who are hoping to get into the childcare program, PSW program, and the other LBS programs at our school.
Hi, my name is Sharon Benson. I'm a Link 3 instructor at OTSS with the OCDSP School Board.
What a lineup! And to get us started, Stephanie is going to tell us about the students in her class.
In literacy basic skills, they have different goal paths. They may be education in terms of achieving high school or beyond, college, maybe university in the future. They also may have goal paths that just include independence and just getting around day to day. But another goal path is employment.
Stephanie is right. Newcomers' motivations for learning English vary. For some, education and employment are the end goals. For others, especially seniors and primary caregivers, navigating the realities of Canadian life and gaining independence are paramount.
I had a situation where a woman still had difficulty getting where she wanted to go, and she sort of lost her confidence very quickly when she wasn't understood. And so we worked as a class to work through that conversation that she said didn't work out. And so she felt more confident the next day trying to have the same conversation again about which bus should I catch and where do I get out here, you know? What happens in the classroom is very much influenced by what's happening in their worlds at that time. So it's very relevant to them.
This kind of relevant, situational conversation support is an integral part of the ESL LINK classroom. In fact, a LINK learner's progress is often measured by a student's ability to perform a real-world task, such as making a dentist appointment, going grocery shopping, or interacting with the child's teacher.
I have an interesting story where I had a group of women who came into our school with notes home from teachers written in cursive writing, and they couldn't read cursive. So that was a really interesting eye-opener for me, where things are coming home about their children from their teachers and they're not able to read them because they're in English and they should be able to read them, but they're in cursive writing, which is difficult to read. So we did a little lesson on how do you do cursive, learn how to do it a little bit for fun, but also in learning how to do it, how to read it.
Stephanie's story reminds me of another teachable moment that I had in my level 1-2 class. My lovely 76-year-old student from Russia came into class upset one morning that she had left her favorite hat on the bus. The class very soon turned into a "Let's find Nadia's hat" lesson. First, we brainstormed vocabulary to describe her hat. Then, on the blackboard, one student wrote down the date, time, and Nadia's bus route number. Next, I wrote out a mini role-play script with one student reporting the missing hat and the other acting as the bus company representative. After a few dry runs, Nadia called the bus company's Lost and Found line. And guess what? They had found her hat. This kind of role-play, writing easy scripts and then performing them, is not only practical, it's really fun. And you can role-play almost anything, from making a doctor's appointment, practicing small talk, and, a popular one with my students, interacting at the bank. Of course, any props or realia, remember that one, that you can bring in to make your scene more real is always a bonus.
I've brought in money and just looked at what do Canadians call a dollar? It's a loonie, okay, a toonie. So we bring in the actual money and we actually, touch it and feel it and see what is it called? How do you say this? Another way I've brought realia into the classroom is through a little plastic clock that I got at the Salvation Army. And telling time. So in Canada, we often will say 1:45, 1:15, 10:to.
Real-life objects help enhance your students' learning, and so do special expert guests, especially in the areas of Canadian law and money matters.
So there's different financial agencies around Ottawa, organizations, nonprofits that will give financial advice and information to students in a general way, but that would be relevant for them. So things like building credit, paying bills, having a credit card, and going to the bank, and the conversations involved in that, and just money matters in Canada. It's a big eye-opener for a lot of, I hate to say especially women, because the men tend to take over the finances in the household, but for them to understand if anything should happen to their husbands, it would be important for them to have a credit history so that they can feel secure and be eligible to get a credit card in the future if they ever needed to.
Canadian financial literacy is a vital theme for learners of all levels. Of course, before one can learn how to manage one's money, one actually needs to make money. And now, our program is going to focus on just that, employment. And Shelley Lewis, who teaches Pathways to Education and Employment, is going to kick things off for us.
I think the common thread that most people want to get out of my class is finding a survival job. Most of my students haven't been to high school yet, so they're looking for work that they can do immediately, just to help their families and support their families and themselves. And they're having a lot of difficulty with the interview process and reading and writing, trying to find those jobs. We first sort of focused on the soft skills and hard skills. A lot of work on soft skills. A lot of the students have come from countries where soft skills are not really important, I guess, and it's very easy for them to find a job. So we started the year doing lots of work on describing themselves, what they're interested in, how important soft skills are for the Canadian employer. We look at things like basic ideas of teamwork, punctuality, organization skills, cooperation. We work mostly on the process of trying to get a job here. So we also looked at different ways to find jobs in Canada. We looked at volunteering. I did a lot of work on the Volunteer Ottawa websites and what kind of jobs are available for them. We also looked at computer, internet, job search skills, the Indeed.com, Government of Canada. In the computer lab, we worked on that. We also worked on just basic job applications, how to fill them out, personal information, how to describe yourself on a job application. I also try to have them relate their past experience and how you can take that past experience and sort of use it to their benefit. A lot of them get scared off with the Canadian experience issue, so maybe having a volunteer who could help them take their past experience and work it into how that could be considered Canadian experience here. You know, just for example, working in a shop in your country, it's very similar probably in how they could explain that to an employer.
Finding and applying for a job is challenging in and of itself. But can you imagine trying to go through the process in a foreign language? Researching jobs in that language? Writing an application and resume in that language? and then finally going through that stressful interview? Well, both Shelley and Sharon regularly call upon their volunteers to help students prepare and practice for job interviews.
A lot of them do get called in for interviews from their applications. So the job application, the resume they can have people help them. So I think for the volunteer to work a lot on the speaking and listening and answering the questions at the interview would be helpful. And again, before, the soft skills and having them able to talk about themselves. A lot of them are not used to promoting themselves or selling themselves. So I like to have volunteers who could really show how to talk about themselves or selling themselves to an employer.
Sharon involves her volunteers in a very serious way, and role play is the name of the game.
So I was lucky. I had 5 volunteers act as employees who would interview my students. Over the course of the 2-week unit, I had my students practice answers to common interview questions. Prior to meeting with the volunteers, I had all the students stand in front of the class and we fired these different questions at them and then recorded their responses to these questions. So a very common question is, tell me about yourself. And a lot of students who come from other countries think this question means, I have 3 children, I'm married, I come from Syria. It doesn't mean that at all. What it means is, tell me about the skills you possess that I, as an employer, want to have, are going to be of benefit to my company. So yes, I'm a very organized worker. In the past, I worked in a school, and that taught me, how to keep track of papers, how to communicate with parents, and, how to interact with students. So something like that. So we have a unit where we scaffold adjectives, where we pre-teach those things, where we show them how those are used. We talk to them. I would talk to them about their history, the kinds of jobs they have. We would identify the kinds of things needed for that job. I would say to them, for example, I'm a teacher. I teach people. Do I need to be very quiet? Do I need to be very calm when I am a teacher? No, teacher, you are not quiet or calm. All right, now imagine I'm a nurse. Do I need to be very calm when I am a nurse? Do I need to help people relax? So what kind of personality characteristics would I have for that job? You're an accountant. Do you need to be able to speak to people? Yes, a little bit. Do you need to be able to stand in front of a class and speak? No, but you need to be very detail-oriented. You need to be able to focus on numbers, be very careful.
Scaffolding adjectives and then matching skills with occupations is a great way to prepare for interviews. And as for job interview role play, what do Sharon's students think of it?
Oh, they love it. That's one of the favorite units. It takes a lot of volunteers, that one. So if I don't have a large pool of volunteers, it's difficult to do because I want to put my students under a little bit of pressure. I want them to feel what it's like to be uncomfortable. On that day, everyone comes dressed in their best attire. The volunteers come in the best attire. They actually have questionnaire forms that they fill out. And the volunteers in this case are the ones that are assessing how the students are doing during this activity.
Each newcomer to Canada you meet has his or her own story and unique learning goal. As our guest today shared with us, volunteers help students reach these goals faster. From teaching vocabulary that will allow a learner to make a doctor's appointment or attend a parent-teacher interview, to acting as an employer in a mock job interview. Volunteers give students precious opportunities to practice English. And the more they practice, the more confident they become, and the more ready to reach their goals. And that ends our show about English for daily life and employment. I'd like to thank Stephanie Paget, Shelley Lewis, and Sharon Benson from the Ottawa Carleton District School Board's School of Continuing Education's ESL Link program. TBLV is brought to you by New Language Solutions, with the generous support of Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, IRCC. Be sure to tune in to our other programs about realia, Canadian culture and citizenship, and giving feedback. Bye for now.